Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the penultimate round of the Simufur AM Championship here from a sunny Imola. And I'm expecting some great racing here today. Once again, and Hemi Husky alongside me will be Fezz Fox. Got over my illness from last week. I heard that John Dalton had to step in for me and watch the great racing at a rain-soaked Nürburgring, but very much a different set of conditions today. Different, not only in weather but Imola. This circuit can really start to turn the championship on its head because the 115, the car that has just been running away with it is with that Porsche, might actually finally have some competition when people like Schurex and those front engine monsters could finally start taking some of the curbs and really show what their cars can do. But penultimate round, championship's really starting to heat up now for for basically anyone apart from first place.
Yeah, absolutely. Just battling some double audio here for you, Hemi, at the moment, so bear with me.
Who's plugged in the wrong audio input again?
Probably me. I was fiddling with sound the other day, and it has not gone well.
Yeah, well, there you go. Have you fixed it? There's a lot of shiny buttons over there. I'm banned from touching the shiny buttons, ladies and gentlemen. Fez doesn't like me touching them.
Well, I should be banned from touching them, I think, from now on because I've ruined everything. So we can hear you fine, and we can hear me fine, and we can hear the game fine. But whenever we hear the game, we hear you as well twice.
Oh, that is an interesting thing to have.
So I'm just going to mess about. Oh, I think.
Have you fixed it?
No, I haven't.
Nope. Nope. Well, as Fez continues to mess around with all the buttons over there, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, well, welcome to Imola. It's probably one of my my favorite tracks, apart from Mazzano, but that's me. I'm a little bit biased there, especially with the Bentley. As actually we see the 148 Paula Brady. This is a strategy as well. Is practicing the pit stops, and I think a couple of people might have actually been having to practice some of the pit stops, especially with what happened last week with Schurex. I believe I was told that the reason they had such an issue was because they missed the pit box by quite a margin.
Yes, they did. I think the wet kind of caught them out a bit. But yeah, hopefully they'll have a better race this time around, as I still fiddle with things here. I think it's actually getting worse. Somehow.
Well, we've got Nate in the chat saying to unbreak it. You just unbreak it, Fez.
That's just the strat.
Just
the strat.
Do that. Just do it. That is the strategy, exactly. But I think at Imola, what I'd be more worried about is not necessarily the huge overshoot from your pit box. It would be coming into the pit lane like an absolute rocket ship and completely missing the line. How many drivers have we seen do that? I know I've nearly done it myself once. When people have knocked over that pit board, you can't use a marker that can be moved, because in a race someone will move it. You can guarantee of that. No matter how far off the track it is, it'll get moved.
Yeah, the likes of the brake marker boards as well. They like a bit of controversy in Simufur in the past with moving brake boards.
Well, I've always sort of said that you have to learn to use something that can't be moved. I mean, I know a number of people who use the Sunoco boards as a brake board at Alton Park, and even though they're on the inside of the circuit, you would not think that anyone can go all the way out there and break them. Yeah, people still will.
I think I've fixed it.
Oh, has he fixed it? Ladies and gentlemen, he's fixed it. He's pushed all the buttons. Is this one of those moments where you just press all the buttons in a random sort of order and eventually it just sorts itself out by magic?
I think it was more of a thing of me remembering what I'd done the first time around to split the audio and was like, oh, that's how I fixed it. So yes, we do appear to have reduced the Hemis to 1.
Yay! Well, not yay. There should always be more Huskies, but yay. only one of me. And as qualifying comes to an end, as the cars start to roll out for the qualifying session, it looked as well like Shurex was on top of in the practice session, followed very short, very quickly behind by one of the Audis. I think it was Tech actually in the 76, I think it is 75. Audi that they were doing incredibly well as well. So it's definitely going to be, I think, looking at if we were to look at the sector times, it would definitely be a battle of two sectors would be in this track for these cars, because the Aston Martin, it's fairly good in a straight line, but it's that front engine, that stability. You can do moves like that, as the 420 demonstrates perfectly. You can completely monster curbs in front engine cars with very little sort of bite back. But if you try that in, the Porsche mid-engine cars, low-slung things like the McLarens here are going to be, going to have to be avoiding the curbs for their life, because you just cannot touch them at all. I know I've driven that car around here. It's interesting because in theory, the car can be incredibly fast if you have the setup and if you have, the courage to take those curbs. And the other thing as well that's been noticed, and even I noticed it as well, have you noticed how it's a green track? It's not also going to be helping any of these drivers through the likes of Aqua Minerale.
Yeah, absolutely. And just like to point out, Thames actually, this is kind of our first real outing in ACC, so being up there in the practice times is really impressive.
Yeah, well, first time out, first impressions are incredibly good as well. And like I say, you don't quite know what people are doing in practice. Some run with a qualifying fuel, some run with a full race fuel, but we'll see, what their time might be as as qualifying comes to an end. But it will be Shurex to take us around on the first lap in the 420, the Aston Martin. Right on board coming into turn one. You've got to be very cautious of those anti-cut yellow curves. Kind of want to be half over them, not quite run out as wide as you dare, really get the good run down to the chicane. Not electing not to take any of the curves here. I've seen some drivers really aggressively come the second half. It's very much a dangerous maneuver. Long, sweeping, and going up there. You've got to nail the exit on this. It's a lot more critical than some people think, because of how long this run is. It's being uphill. You lose your momentum. Everything is exaggerated. It's top of the hill. Very easy to run out the track limits there. We've seen a couple of people get drive-throughs there, and plenty of qualifying laps. And into Aqua Minerale, the double apex right, heavy lateral loads on the car. You really feel that it wants to, slide out away from you. You've got to keep the car in check. And on the Alta chicane, the biggest cause of track limits, invalid laps, and thrown away hopes and dreams. Really, you kind of have to take the curves, but you must make sure that the car is set up and down the hill. Yeah, another braking zone that plenty of people get wrong, because of the downhill, the gravity is working against you. You have to brake a lot more early, than you might necessarily think. Last couple of corners, once again, get a good run out onto the very long straight, deceivingly long. This is where we'll see some of the real speed demons come into play. And it's a 43.8 right out of the bat. And for a track that was green and has only just clicked over to fast, that is pretty good going straight out the bat. Skylar Vixen comes across the line in the 660 with a 1:46, so about 3 seconds off. Chuckles taking the alternate line there, obviously not going to rejoin while there's traffic, and the BWT car gets back on the road.
Yeah, that's not going to help their tyres much. I would have been pulling in there to get some new ones. But yeah, that's pretty good going so far. The track just kind of ticked over the fast halfway through Shurex's lap there, so you could definitely see the sliding in the first kind of sector, and then kind of tied it up towards the end.
Yeah, exactly. So I think the times are just gonna, because we've got such another dynamic track, the times are just gonna keep tumbling now, really, because it just is gonna get better and better on the grip. bracket in the 77 McLaren. These are the cars that, like I said, I thought they might struggle a little bit. 1.7 seconds off the current pace, but still has plenty to improve. A lot of green times on the board as well, because of the track that's starting to finally rubber in. I mean, this car, Bracken, he's up half a second almost. Churex is up another 0.2, a couple of tenths here and there. Charter's currently matching his best, but you never know where all the time is for a driver. It could be, right in the last corner, but as the 77 continues through Aqua Minerale, and the McLarens look just so planted through there. They are kind of just like a go-kart. You drive it in, and that's that. And I did think that this car is going to have a lot more through the Alta chicane, right in the anti-cut curbs. And a lot of people might think that that's a line that you can do in the game and you can't do in real life. No, we saw the SRO came here, with the real GT World Challenge, and they completely launched their cars over that curb just as hard. They don't really seem to care much.
Yeah, I was watching it with, I think it was the first kind of time I've actually caught the Imola race live, and they were yeeting it over that curb. And even the F1, they can really take a lot of curb on entry. It's kind of the exit you have to worry about. Of course, if you take too much entry, you will hit that sausage and it'll just send you to space.
Yeah, exactly. And that was also the race where I was a little bit sad, because the Bentley, as we're watching one on screen, Snowdog, who I think is our sole. Nope, in fact, tell a lie. I was going to say he was our sole Bentley. He now has a friend in the 14, but that was the one where the Bentley, during the safety car restart, ended up finding a Lamborghini that was either stopped or he wasn't paying attention. Something happened, and the poor Bentley ended up very broken at the side of the racetrack. So we wish that luck, not wish that luck on some of ours. A Snowdog with a big improvement up to a 145 puts him into P5. Churex continuing to pound round. They have quite a large upkeep on their Delta. I saw half a second, maybe losing just a tiny little bit in the last corners, but it's still going to be a slight improvement. I think about 2 or 3 tenths coming up to the line. Does the Aston Martin of the 420? What will it be? It will be a 43.5. So now, Temtem, half a second off the pace, has really got it all to do. And we have the clump of Audis once again. Second, third, and fourth are all the Audis. And where is even our championship leader, the 115, is yet to set a lap.
Yep, in Val at the moment, so I don't know if that's maybe an outlap or are they getting caught out with a Porsche here. But you mentioned there's 2 Bentleys. There's actually 3 Bentleys on the grid now, so they are multiplying.
Oh, so there is, yeah. There's Kit Cup as well. So there's the 14, the 83, and the 555, which is good for me as a Bentley fan. We only had one, and now we have a few more. I can always celebrate some more Bentleys. Please drive more Bentleys, lads.
Yeah, I myself, a McLaren fan. I kind of swiveled back there earlier from the M4 for the APAC race and ended up winning. So I'll be sticking with that for a while. I'm definitely on the McLaren side of things, and Hemi's the big old Bootly fan.
I seem to drive just massive old cars. I mean, the last championship I did, I was in the M6, which was actually more... The car was fun, but just people around me weren't fun. I'll say that much. That's all I would say. And speaking of cars that are, big and boat-like, the old Jaguar, probably the most out there car this entire season is the 759, really. I cannot say I've ever seen someone, unless it was a special event, willingly pick the Jaguar to run versus all of the next-gen cars. But the 759 still putting on a fairly good show. 2.1 seconds off the current overall pace, but is improving quite well. They had 0.4 of a second, have lost a little bit in the outer chicane, but have got the good exit. So that delta is once again starting to climb back up into the 0.4 of a second. Could be a little bit more time in the last couple of corners, and that would get them, I think it'd put them a lot closer to Snowdog. I don't think they're going to get Bracken unless they have everything in the last corner, which they don't, actually losing a tiny bit of time on the exit there. And with the Jaguar, you kind of have to maximize the exits just because that is really your trick card, is that speed. And it will be a slight improvement of 45.4, but not close enough just yet to get to Snow Dog.
Yeah, Hoot obviously in the Jaguar. I haven't really driven it a lot, but when I did drive it, I quite liked how it felt. It felt very safe, other than the on-par oversteer you get from it. But yeah, it had a nice front end on it, which I like. But yeah, it was.
If we could make the Jag have modern day traction control, it would actually be a lot better.
Yeah.
That's the other problem you get, is it's very much of the last generation, and you can tell that because the electronics are dim-witted. Like, the only way I found to drive the Jag happily with the traction control is either turn it off and just drive it with your right foot and pretend it's some GT4 Maserati, or have it on 1 and you need to open the steering up as soon as you can, because it seems that anything over about 5-10 degrees of steering makes the traction control go absolutely bananas. No matter what you do with the throttle, it just doesn't work. It's like the old V12s. If you could give it the traction control from one of these modern GT3 machines, then yeah, it would be quite a good car. I'm still interested to see what Kunos eventually do, if they do anything with it, because they were gifted that sort of a little bit more freedom of the cars that are outside of the competitiveness, to alter the balance of performance. I don't think you're going to exactly be winning in a Jag, but hey, it might bring it a little bit back in contention. Bunny with a big improvement there, 145.5, puts them up into that top 10 position. And we sort of theorized before the stream, it might be a bit of a low turnout today, but 23 cars, especially if you're in the top 10, that's quite good going.
Well, I think we only have 25 people registered, so that's nearly 100% registration. Yeah, definitely no drop in numbers towards the end of the season, which is nice to see. All these people are really getting into it, really enjoying themselves by the looks of it. But as we say that, Grim, still no time on the board. 15, nearly 13 minutes into qualifying.
Yeah, and it's still currently a invalid lap, but that with how long this lap is, this must be an into a pit and an out lap. I don't know what is happening with the 115. I mean, both are Porsches. Yeah, well, no, tell lie. The one Porsche has set a time, but I think it's just the nature of the Porsche is an unforgiving car here. The track is unforgiving to the car, and obviously the 115 is also racing on a controller. It doesn't necessarily help, but we did see in practice they can put in that good time. Just need to do it as Charter races up to the line. The pack of Audis has been briefly broken up by Bracken in that McLaren where we weren't even looking. Snuck up to P3, but Charter says no. We shall take back one for the Audis. So it's now a P2 position for them. 4/10 off Schurex in that Aston Martin.
That's really impressive for the old early, especially around here. But just you saying about the Porsche, it's kind of both its worst enemies here, isn't it? It's there's long straights and there's lots of curbs.
Yeah, I've seen some people manage to make that car work. When it's making the car work. Jasper, the 223 heavy, because tries to take the inside curb, which you often want to do. You want to set the car up for that, because otherwise it is just understeer city, kind of as we see the 660 do. But those inside anti-cut curbs are vicious, especially in a low-slung car like the Ferrari. Maybe if you were in a the Bentley or something that could just monster curbs, you'd get away with that, but that is kind of the tale of the mid-engine woes around here. But yeah, the Porsche can work. I've seen some people really make it work, but it is difficult to say the least.
Yeah, it certainly wouldn't be my first choice around here. Like my first choice would probably be the Mercedes, but I think that's been a little bit nerfed since then. I think that's kind of tied with the Bentley now as to what the best car is here, and the Lexus is pretty good here too.
The Lexus is pretty good. The BMW M4 is still a very good car. That's kind of still a very good car overall, even after even after its balances and its sort of tweaks and changes to bring it back more in line. It's still a very good car. But yeah, I would have to say it would be, at least for me, it would be a Bentley around here nowadays.
Yeah, although I do have a setup for the McLaren from our good friend Sebastian Brunier, and it works pretty well around here. It does like the curbs. Well, it doesn't like the curbs, but it doesn't despise them as much as it usually does.
I think I've got a similar setup that we used when we did a bit of esports testing, and I was saying that Seb is the only person who's managed to set up a McLaren to where I actually liked it around here, because I tried some of the standard setups and it just did not work for me.
Well, he was one of the original pioneers of the McLaren for me. I raced with him in it was RCI Friday Endurance. It was 2-hour races. I think we came like 29th out of 33 and out of the whole championship or something like that. But that was before the McLaren actually was any good. So Sebastian and I are both big McLaren fanboys. So we tried to get it to work, but it was just awful to drive at no low speed grip, and it was on a knife edge. And then I think it was the 1.6 update I think came out, and it completely changed that car around.
Yeah, there's been some updates that have really, really benefited it, and others that have kind of hurt it a little bit. And as well, just while we were sort of talking and that and reminiscing about the oldie times in ACC, Kamias, they had quite a good lap. It was a big improvement, but it was just invalid. But they must have invalidated it. I think it was the Alta Chicane, because that was the only time I saw, which shows how fine some of these drivers are cutting it, and sometimes how fine you have to cut that chicane if you really, really want, that big improvement, how it gets right to the top. Speaking of right at the top, still Shurex leads the charge. Charter has pulled back into the pits, potentially for a new set of boots and go out for another charge. Temtem is still about 0.8 of a second off, but is improving quite a lot. They're about 4 tenths up, around about. The 113 as well here, racing to the line. The other Ferrari that we've got, which is another car that I used to see around here a lot, but it's once again kind of fallen out of favour. It's a 147.3. Once again, a minor improvement, but not quite enough yet to get to the other Porsche.
Yep, and Kamir's nearly 1.3 seconds up, but again another invalid lap, so maybe just taking a little bit too much through the final chicane there.
Yeah, and I think we'll see as they cross the line what the last was, that last and the best. So they can definitely do. They can, really launch themselves all the way up potentially to a P5 spot. They've just got to get that one lap where it is valid, it appears to be through the chicane. Speaking of through the chicane and invalid, Zar in the number 10, the AlphaTauri Honda. Once again, it was another valid lap right up until the Alta Chicane. And what did I say at the start of qualifying? The Alta Chicane is a place where qualifying laps and hopes and dreams go to die.
Yeah, interestingly though, both the Audis 2 and 3 are the old Audi, not the Evo 2, just the normal Evo. So obviously that car works pretty well around here. Paula in the new Audi seems to be not kind of up to her pace, the pace she would like to be. She did get into the 43s in her practice runs, so hopefully she'll be trying to replicate that in this qualifying session. Still plenty of time left, just ticked over 11 minutes. So yeah, still a couple of rounds to be done here.
Yeah, well, obviously the new Audi part of the Challenger pack, so not necessarily everyone right now has it, but it's unlike a lot of other cars where the Evo is just flat out better than the old generation. I would say that with the old versus the first evolution of Audi. I don't think that the Evo 2 is necessarily like a flat out replacement for the old Audi. It's kind of an alternate. You know what I mean? It's what do you want in the car? Do you want a car that is potentially absolutely rapid at a lot of tracks, but is very, very knife edgy and you have to hang on to it? That's your old Audi. The new Audi is, a lot more stable. It's a lot easier to drive with the aero updates, but it still retains that mid-engined, rotation on it. But the problem with that is because with more stability and more aero, more drag, slower down a straight, you have to push harder. So it's that, balancing act. But if you can feel safe in the car, you don't die every other lap, or you don't make big mistakes, it might be on average still faster. So it's an interesting, evolution. I don't call it a flat out replacement. I just say, what is your driving style? And the 14 Bentley, speaking of driving styles, races up to the line, will be another improvement. Manages to knock the Mercedes off that top 5 spot. So we've got a Bentley in the top 5. But look at it kind of shows the balance of performance, especially in some of these, like in the AM Championship. It goes Aston Martin, 2 Audis, a McLaren, a Bentley, a Mercedes, and a Jag and a Honda are all in the top 10.
Yeah, I think it's definitely some. I was trying to think of the word. Variety, maybe, is the best word. Variety of marks up on the leaderboard there. And of course, there is technically 2 different types of varieties in the top 10, so we can count that as a different entry as well. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different marks in the top 10.
And speaking of people in the top 10, we finally have a time from the 115. It slots them in P4, half a second off Schurex, but the track is still slowly rubbering in. I expected it maybe to rubber in a little bit faster, but I guess 22C is not exactly boiling for Italy, but it's also not freezing cold either, as Schurex takes a bit of a wobble and a bit of a dive off the road into Acqua Minerale. That is a common occurrence that we've seen plenty of times. Yeah. It's a vicious corner. If you get the car unsettled, you just kind of have an elongated crash, especially if you unsettle the car and it starts coming through the first right-hander. You can't really stop it, and before you know, you've ended up at the second right-hander. And then here comes Camir's again in the 97. They are still. This is, another flying lap, 0.8, 0.9 of a second. You just need to watch them. It's coming up now in a couple of corners. It's the Alta chicane. It's where this driver, it's their Achilles heel, it seems to be. And what will it be for the 97? They're coming up there, 0.9 of a second up, basically, coming into the Alta chicane. Cuts it left. It is actually still valid. It's still valid. It's 1.1 seconds. I almost saw 1.2 seconds. So maybe taking it just that little bit more cautiously. But, the gain here is going to be huge. Coming into the penultimate corner, breaking the downhill, making sure you don't overshoot and end up in that massive gravel trap off to your other side. Final corner, maybe a tiny time loss. I'm talking like hundredths of a second here, racing up to the line, and Camir's will jump all the way into P9.
Yep, nice lap from them, finally getting in a nice final chicane there. But yeah, Paula improves again. She is now in P7. A couple of people improving now. Bragan is nearly 7/10 up, just losing a little time out of the final corner there, down to half a second. But yeah, I think we're going to see this track tick over to optimum pretty soon, and then the cars are really going to light up.
But I think it's going to be literally who's going to get that final last lap, before the session sort of ticks over. I think that's going to be potentially the fastest time, because although it may go to optimum, that doesn't mean 100% grip. There are still levels of optimum, and Temtem dives back into the pits once again. That Audi seems to have been in and out of the pits, potentially just trying to sort the tyre pressures and get that little bit more as Grim launches the Porsche over the curves.
Yeah, lost a little bit of time there.
But still very brave and managing to keep it going. Still, it's a 0.2, at least at the exact moment, 0.2 improvement. So that would put them up, I believe, to P3.
Big gains.
And a little bit more, 0.4 of a second. It's going to be maybe a tiny bit of loss, 0.37, racing up to the line. It's going to be a good lap for them, though. Will it knock Temtem off that P2?
Oh, exactly the same time.
It's the exact same time.
Of course, Temtem gets the go ahead because they set their lap first, so that would be why they differentiate there. But yeah, that's definitely some time on the table there for Grim. Even third he might be happy with. I think he can do what he done in Paul Ricard and just get the launch, get ahead of those two, that turbo car and the Aston, and try and stay ahead.
Yeah, well, that is the problem with the Aston Martin every time, is that you are completely left open to attack at the start. And Imola is a decent run down to turn 1 from the green flag. It's not as long as some tracks, but it still might be enough to make a move. What has the 660 got? Skylar Vixen. It's a small improvement, and it's up 1 place, up into 12th place. And then the other Bentley Kit Cub, the 83. Once again, like I said, not a car that I've seen or commentated on, but that is very much a Golf livery, I would say.
It is, yes. That's exactly what I thought when I saw it.
Very much a Golf-inspired livery.
It looks good in the Golf colours. I like it.
It does. There's a couple of liveries for the Bentley recently that have been running in like British GT and such that I've kind of been drooling over and wishing that we had in ACC.
Yes, I saw your tweet today about the Assetto Bentley.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, Kunos, the people of ACC, can we have that one? I want that one, really. It's perfect. It's even my Fusona's shade of blue, basically. So there you go. Perfection. Can I have that, please? I'm a simple person. I don't want much. Just a really complicated Bentley livery.
It's not much. That'll do for your birthday and Christmas as well.
Yeah, exactly. Paula Brady coming around the 140A had a little bit of time, potentially lost it through the outer chicane, which is difficult in any car, through the penultimate corner, trying not to run wide. You can see how close the drivers run to the edge, and you are right hanging over the edge of that gravel trap. It was a good improvement though through the last couple of corners. That is where the time obviously was for this driver, racing up to the line. It will jump from 7th to 6th. So it's still a good improvement, and actually going to pull over, potentially another reset. The track is still fast. 3 minutes left on the clock, though. People are really going to be starting to wonder, are they going to get 2 laps or 3 laps in?
Oh, I think you'd be hard-pressed to get 3 laps in now if you were just leaving the pits. But yeah, track's still fast, so maybe we won't see the optimum conditions we were hoping for. But still some improvements getting put down there. As Grim takes P1. By 5,000ths of a second.
There you go. That Porsche did have more to say, and continues on even with the fast track. I think there still might be just a little bit left. It's currently an invalid lap, but if they get the hammer down, they're going to get 1 more lap in with that. So they're going to have a bit of a go. Shurex is not done yet though, and is actually on a lap with a little bit of an improvement. The 14 makes an improvement up into that top 5 position.
Shurex does take P1 away from Grim.
Okay, so there you go. Shurex takes P1 away by 3
300s, 3.5 hundreds, yeah.
3.5 hundredths of a second, but actually looking at his delta right now, I briefly saw 0.4 of a second there, so that Aston Martin has got some time to find. At the exact moment now, they will still get 1 more lap in after that lap, so it's going to be close right to the end. You've got to think, what has the 115 got left on the table, if they've got anything left at all in that Porsche. And 660 charging down, currently in P12, but a good improvement as well from them. Another couple of tenths of a second will put them that little bit closer to Snowdog as well, where we've seen them these two race together before. The Bentley versus the Honda. It's, like I said, it's a very interesting one because the Honda just didn't used to really be anything anywhere, but it's sort of come back down, and it is an improvement. 1.7 to 1.6, so they're only a tenth behind that Bentley as Shurex in the 420 charges down the hill for what will be now coming on to their last lap. It's another good improvement, 0.2 of a second as it stands right now, but they had easily 0.4 of a second coming out of the sort of sector 1, so they've got some more time, and it does a big improvement again. 3/10 now is the gap between them and the 115, and
they've dipped in under the 143s. First car into the 142s.
Yeah, so the times are starting to tumble now as well.
And that's it.
The track. That is it. That is it. Shurex has decided that last lap, maybe they felt that's all they had to give in that Aston Martin. Just as elected to say that is good enough, call it there. And everyone else now running to the line. I think everyone was seeing on the cameras anyway. Will not get another lap in. So for Zar in the AlphaTauri Honda, it will be their last lap, but it's a good improvement. through the outer chicane is kind of where a lot of that time is, bleeding off a little bit of time just because they didn't get, you know, that the optimal run out of the chicane. We saw the car kind of jump around a little bit coming through the penultimate corner, a little bit of time lost, but if they can keep it on coming up to the line, it's still some time lost, just bleeding away. And that's the worst thing as a driver, when you see your Delta just bleeding away down the straight that you can do nothing about. And it would have been just enough to pip Skylar had they held that, but it just won't be this time around for the number 10. What has the 223 got coming to the line? The Ferraris have kind of both been at the back of the pack, not really having the greatest of days. It is a big improvement, though, from the 223. Have managed to finally get it hooked up and going, and it will be up to 14th position for that Ferrari. Very good improvement there. And some of the last people finally coming to the line. Snowdog in the 555. What is their
both Bentleys improving?
In fact, yeah, they're up a little bit. The Bentley, the number 14, slight improvement. It might knock Charter off the P4.
Oh, it does.
And it does. And it does. The Bentley splits the Aston Martin.
This might put Snow up the 11th.
The Snowdog, I think, one of the last
top 10 for Snow.
Go.
Top 10 for Snow.
So the 555, top 10 position for them. Really must be happy with that. That is very good going.
Definitely didn't press the wrong button there.
Definitely not, Fezz.
No, definitely didn't just run the title credits for no reason. So yeah, as we roll into the pre-race, Surex with a 3/10 gap to Grim. Now that's definitely curb time, I would say, considering it's just the Aston can just ride them so much better than the Porsche can. So any predictions before we run through our championship leaderboard?
Predictions, I think that the 420 is going to have a struggle coming off the start line because it's Aston Martin life. And if I think where Grim is going to start, you can, if you're very, very brave, go around the outside of the turn 1, then you get the inside, which really unsettles people, you know, through that first set of corners. So it could be another sort of lap 1, turn 1 upset by the Porsche driver. And other than that, I'm not going to take my eye off the 14 Bentley. You know, that car, we know it can munch some curbs, and you know they showed some good pace, and they were improving right up until the end. They could potentially get on the podium there.
Well, yeah, and Temtem as well. 2 brand new drivers into the championship, both within the top 5. So that's definitely, we could have done with those in the first few races, and it would have given us a hell of a championship fight to commentate on. But we'll run through the championship standings now, as Grim Lilith is in P1 with 99 points, just on the cusp of 100. Surex in second with 79. Paula Brady in third with 67 points. Bracken in fourth with 61. Charter in fifth with 55. Czar, he'd be happy enough with that. Sixth position for him for 48 points. Skylar in seventh with 40. Seffi in 8th with 31 points. Bunny in 9th with 31 again. Jasper in 10th with 30. And ZZ in 11th with 30 points. And that's Circle in 12th with 29 points. Rolling over, Snowdog in 13th with 27. Hoot in 14th with 27 as well. A lot of people on the same points here. Kamirs in 15th with 22. 16th is Pablo with 21. Cerulean 17th with 17 points. That's a nice little satisfactory kind of number there. 17th with 17. Lexus in 18th with 16 points. Hamstedo in 19th with 15 points. Parasag, I'm going to get that wrong every time. Every time I read it, I don't know how to say it. In 20th with 10 points. Wolf and Foxdale in 21st with 9 points. LPR Sarah Stant in 22nd with 5 points. Ant in 23rd with 5. JPEG Fox in 24th with 4. Ferrite in 25th with 2 points. And Pan in 26th with 1 point. And that is your championship table. I struggle every time reading those names out. It always gets me. And we do have a penalty for car 223.
It could be worse. You could be trying to commentate on some of the RCI races, such as Night Owl and stuff, where we have a big range of European drivers as well as some of the Americans, but you try saying Caracas every single time when it's spelt so strangely, and your mind will wander back. It's just a commentator's job, ladies and gentlemen. What we do is we take your names, muller them, and then and then later on people tell us how to pronounce their names, and then what we do for that is completely forget it. But yeah, the penalties that you are seeing already being applied pre-race, these were from qualifying as well. I believe the 223 got the 15-second for causing an avoidable accident. 223 dives under braking and hits the 12, both on valid laps. Obviously, someone catching up there and getting a little bit hasty to try and get by. A 5-second for car 12 as they were exiting the pits, blocked car 79 on a valid lap, resulting in contact, spinning, and collecting the 115. So that was our championship leader who just ended up being collected in an accident. A 5-second for the 448 after the previous incident, the one involving the championship leader. Car 448 was stopped off the racing line, attempts to rejoin, pulling back onto the racing line and causing a collision. So that was, unsafe rejoin. Another 5-second. This is for the 41. They invalidate the lap and was caught by car 79. And they ended up impeding car 79 on their lap in the final two corners. So that was, blue flag infringement. And a warning for the 448 using text chat, but because this is their first race with us, it shall be a warning only. But just a warning to some of the drivers of the reminder of the rules, as it were.
Yep, definitely don't want that text box poking up on you when you're on a hot lap. That's going to be costing you a few tenths at least. I know it does. It always does for me. I always know not to look at it, but I always end up looking at it.
Oh yeah, exactly. You still do anyway. I mean, I even end up doing really daft things like if I get the warning for a yellow flag, I'll look over at the track map even if I'm on like a really hot qualifying, and I've done that before a couple of times and thrown my own sort of qualifying window out. It's just natural reaction. I keep thinking I really shouldn't do that, but every time I'll get a warning, I'll look over, even if it's someone just stopped on the outside, because qualifying there's so many people pulling over, slow cars, people rejoining, etc. It is a bit of a chaos everywhere as the cars finally get on the roll for the full length formation lap, and the track has not improved at all. It's still fast as well, so I don't think it could be that far off really the optimum, but it means that the drivers are going to have to get used to just that little bit less grip at the start, potential to grain some tires and to cause some issues right off the bat.
Oh, that's it. It's the early starts of these tracks. Usually a nice clean overnight, maybe some rain. We're 8 a.m. so this is probably the first running this track has seen today. So a little bit of track devolution, you would say, probably overnight. So yeah, I think we're definitely going to have to take a little bit easy on the tires to start with. Maybe see a few people pitting pretty early for some brand new rubber.
Yeah, and that's the thing. That's the call as well at Imola, because as much as I've had multiple races where this has happened, Imola is a track where if you get stuck behind traffic, it can really hamper your race. You wouldn't think that it would be difficult to pass here. It's such a big circuit that you'd think, oh, there's plenty of places, but I've had it before where I've won races on a strategy call by going long, because then I wasn't stuck. I didn't end up behind some back markers, and I had to wait to be safely let by, or make the move around them. It's a strange track, is Imola, for that.
Yeah, that's actually what happened to me this morning in the APAC Championship. I went longer than everyone else and technically jumped one position, but the person I overtook before the pit stop had closed kind of back up to me, and then I jumped the person in front of them. So yeah, I gained 2 positions by doing that. It all depends really, I suppose, on if the car feels fine, why pit? If your tires are fine and you can still put the lap times in, pit as late as possible to get that fresh rubber on, as long as you're not getting held up by traffic.
Yeah, as long as you're not being held up and you're not sort of losing tons and tons and tons of lap time. But that will be my one claim to fame, was back in the CHSR days. was I beat Jordan Grant Smith doing
Yeah.
that. Not, ladies and gentlemen, because he was, because I was a better driver. It was just the one better strategy. I jumped Geordie at the start, managed to hold him behind me for a little bit. He got round me, drove away as he does, and it was just that pitting later that saved me because of the the traffic that was entailed. So it's going to be an interesting one. But as we line up 2 by 2 for the long run down to the green flag at Imola, it seems to be just an eternity when you're on this racing track as well. It's going to be the 420 to lead us off. Shurex on the inside line, Bryn Lilith 115 Porsche on the outside line. Can they do another lap 1 turn 1 upset? We've seen that driver do this multiple times, and they know exactly what they have to do, and they know what they're up against. They're up against a turbo lagging Aston Martin with their instant acceleration Porsche, and the people behind them are also going to be, pretty sharp off the bat with the the Audi even. Here we go, green flag as the field kind of spreads out a bit, and there you go. There goes Grim Lilith in the 115. Look at how much turbo lag the Aston has. We're almost 3 wide as people are taking to the gravel.
Oh, there's one of them.
And the grass to take avoiding action. The 2 leaders break away incredibly easily, and that is them 2 now gone.
Oh no!
There's been a big accident behind involving the 148.
I think this might be a restart.
This might, yes, be a restart. I'm sure the live stewards will be looking and hanging their heads, thinking, "Oh, God's sake, lads!" But it might be a restart. A lot of the field was caught up in that, especially that 148 Paula Brady.
Oh, hang on a second. We are going to restart the race. Let me just check something, because I don't want to get beat with my password.
No, you need to give me the password, Fezz. You see, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, I do, yes. What? Oh.
But while we wait for the race restarts and the technical difficulties to be sorted out, that was a phenomenal start by the 115. I mean, they just they just absolutely launched it off the line. Exactly what we were talking about. The Aston Martin with the with just the turbo lag off the launch, it was always going to be difficult for the 420, but I didn't expect them to be sort of that far behind.
Yep, that's unfortunate. That's the first restart actually we've had in pretty much all of our series, but I think that just got a bit out of hand there.
Well, if the record is only 1, then that's still pretty good going over a season. We've seen some plenty big crashes before.
Yeah,
in other series, and they haven't even had a restart. But everyone who got caught up in that will have a chance to reset, to get the car fixed. There were some cars that looked severely damaged, and that can really, really hurt your race, especially when you have that pit window, because you just kind of stuck and until the pit window opens. But it'll make the race a little bit more interesting. Some people maybe in the back of the pack might go that little bit easier into the turn 1, lap 1, but then the 420 will now know exactly what's going to happen. They might be able to defend from it this time.
Well, that's it. They kind of know what they expect now. I think Grim was definitely on the fringes of towards the top end of that box where you have to stick to. So I think maybe Shurex giving away a little bit of track there that they probably shouldn't have. Maybe they'll try something different this time around, but I don't know. It's kind of hard to defend from that Porsche off the start.
It is. It's for the 420. Well, you need to either have complete lightning reflexes, or you have to get a little bit used to brake boosting the Aston Martin. I mean, any turbo car, if you get good at it, will benefit from it. But the Aston Martin, especially, if you can hold the brakes, keep the while maintaining that 70 kilometers an hour for the start, get the turbos actually spooled up and whistling, so that keep full throttle on. So as soon as the light goes green, you take your foot off the brake and you're gone. And I've done this now. I've kind of got a much better at it. I never used to bother because the Bentley is fairly good with its turbos. It's you feel it, but it's not like the Aston Martin. But I've had to be using it in the M6 in that championship that I've been running in, because the M6 I think has 2 dustbin-sized turbos, and you put your foot down and you can physically hear the spool up. They take so long, but brake boosting that car, you can keep up with the Porsche off the line. I did it last night. Did it last night at Donington. I thought that the Porsche on the outside was going to be completely and utterly gone, and I was not going to keep up with them at all. And the green flag dropped, and I let my foot off the brake, and I was basically alongside them coming into turn 1. Like, wow, that's gone well.
Yeah, it's kind of, sometimes you can get it right and sometimes you can get it wrong. It depends. You kind of don't want to be doing it for too long, otherwise you'll start heating your brakes up too much, and then you'll boil your tires pretty much. And you just kind of, as soon as you're kind of maybe under the 70 kilometer limit sign, then you can start brake boosting, I think.
Yeah, that's generally what I've found. Or I end up... depends. A lot of the tracks that we ran in that were quite cold, so I would still, I'd actually let the tyres cool off a little bit and then brake boost for a little bit longer, and it just gives the tyres something to bite into on the opening lap. But it's one of those risk versus reward type moments, and you can get it wrong in the sense that you can slow yourself up too much. It is quite hard depending how your pedals are set up and how your car kind of reacts, because like the M6 seems to not really be bothered. It doesn't really click the ABS on, but I imagine some cars, the ABS will start going crazy and it'll just get all kinds of sad at you. So
yeah, I actually drove the M6 for, I think it was APAC season 1, and I quite enjoyed it. Actually competitive at some tracks, yeah. Not too bad.
It's very, very, very competitive in British GT balance of performance. Take it to anywhere British GT. So you go to Snetterton, Donington Park, Alton Park. Weirdly, you wouldn't think it, but you can really, use the BMW M6 there to great effect. Go anywhere there though, and it will be completely broken in the sense of speed. It's like they just took both restrictors off the turbos and just... it is allowed to run free. It's quite scary. So, like, for example, we were looking at it last night. At Donington, Sector 1 is start line. You run down to turn 1, you turn right, and you accelerate out, and the timing split is just after you've gone... It's before the left-hander down down the S's. That's where the timing split is. The M6 is 0.3 of a second faster there than the Porsche, with 2 pro drivers in it. Where, ladies and gentlemen, do you find 0.3 in a straight, a turn and a straight? that is how scary it is. And the Porsche kind of made it up the rest of the lap. For example, like old hairpin and top of the hill and the chicane and everything. The Porsche starts to reel you back in. But Sector 1 and a good chunk of Sector 2. It's just unfair, really. It's just unfair. The poor Porsches can't do anything. But speaking of poor Porsches, and this time with another great shot at it as we line up 2 wide, it's once again the 115 and the 420. I think it is going to be... Shurex is going to know this, and they're gonna have to defend from it. But
yeah,
I think that you can already see there that Grim is wanting to be as far along that green box as you can get without getting a penalty, and that's kind of things you have to do. When you're running for a season, they probably know that if they can get ahead, it's going to be difficult for the Aston Martin to just completely send it on you. Yeah, you have the better curb munching abilities, but the drive and the acceleration of the Porsche, you really can't falter. As here we go, green flag once again. The 115 falls out in front, and it was just a couple of millimeters clear. The 115 once again with that jump, but Shurex is up the inside, has a look, but decides better off it. Falls back in line, but Grim takes the curb. A severe wobble from the 115. Gets back in front, but that's going to have done nothing for their run down to the Villeneuve chicane. As we've got 2 cars off in the background. What has happened in the back of the pack is this. Was it a slight touch from behind, possibly?
was,
Yes, I
yeah.
think there was contact with the Jaguar. And then Zara had a crash all of their own. And
Yeah, it looked like it,
the
yeah.
AlphaTauri Honda, they just happened to collect it right up with the 97.
Yep, looked like Zara just kind of had a bit of oversteer on exit there and just kind of met that car, the McLaren of Kamirs there in the gravel chap. A little bit of a bump maybe from Hoot in the Jaguar. We'll see what the stewards decide about that.
Yeah, it did look like there was some slight contact, so that would be one for the stewards to look after. And after that slight rocky start from the 115, they've got it back on the road and continuing to sort of run away from Schurex, who's almost under fire as well from Temtem in that Audi looking.
Oh, there's a lot
racing.
of curb from Schurex there.
But you can see, look how much curb the front engines can take. You got to be careful with that though, that it's not a track limits. You know, too many of that will give you a bit of a warning. And the Bentley behind as well, I'm glad to see that 14 has managed to pull themselves just a little bit of an air gap, also helped by the fact that Bracken is now starting to attack Charter, the two battles of the mid-engines. But now you come onto a straight, I think the Audi is really going to be in its element here.
Yeah, I don't think McLaren just has the puff to get against the Audi, especially the old Audi. It's just going to sail away into the distance, I think, especially with a tow as well.
You can see, despite Bracken being in the tow, that entire sort of straight, the gap really hasn't closed enough that they can make a move. Might have to take some avoiding action there. It looked incredibly close as the 759 is battling Snowdog, tries to go for the old cutback. Will be on the outside as the 555 takes the inside sort of anti-cut curb, and that launches the Bentley.
Yeah, that was a little bit ambitious from Snowdog taking that much curb. Maybe a little bit spooked with the Jag trying to go around the outside.
I think they were trying to give them the space. And
that's
the other thing about the Bentley is that it is a right-hand drive car. So if you try moving over even more with, you know, depending on what camera angle you use, you can move over more to give someone the space, and the whole left side of your car is off the track. It's an issue with that car. It's something that some drivers don't get to grips with, but I think I've raced that side basically most of my ACC career, so I end up getting used to it.
Yep, Bentley hunting down Temtem here. Attic showing some speed in qualifying. Not bad. I think this is like one of their first races as well, so they're kind of showing off what they can do as well. This is definitely interesting speed coming from these two who have never raced here before. So it'd be interesting to see kind of what they get up to in silver, which I can imagine they probably will be getting bumped up to, since they're so far up the grid on their first goes.
Yeah, well, Attic was showing, you know, steady improvement throughout the whole qualifying session, sort of settling into, you know, the Bentley and how it handles. And as, like I said, I kind of thought it might happen, slowly taking it to Temtem, who at the minute, anyway, has the fastest lap of the race. Does the Audi in third place? Possibly the two cars in front haven't set a valid lap yet.
Yes, it's entirely possible. Yes,
the fastest lap of the race only counts if it is valid, so that is very much a thing. I mean, you know, we've seen that before, but we'll have to keep an eye on that. The Audi could be a bit of a dark horse.
Yeah, it seems to be. I mean, I have driven the old Audi at Imola, and it was quite soft and nice to drive, actually, contrary to what it usually like. Oh, we have Jasper off, and that's probably a bit of a loss on the brakes out of him. Oh, that's too far away.
Looks like G3, considering what angle they came in at, I think they've come into the chicane, the back end started to rotate around, and they've looped it around, waiting very sensibly for a safe place to rejoin, but that drops them all the way down just with that one slight mistake. And actually, while we were looking away, 14 has dropped back a little bit from the from the Audi in front. A heavy hit of the anti-cuts. Is now kind of ended up in the jaws of Charter, who's got the worst position in racing, I always say, because you want to attack, you want to get around the 14 Bentley in front of you, but every time you do go for a move, you're opening the door and opening an invitation for the 77 of Bracken right behind.
Yeah, as Charter has a little bit of a wiggle out of the final corner there, I might give Bracken a chance to get past, but that Audi still has a slipstream with a big Bentley in front of it, so probably not going to happen this time around.
Bentley that punches the same size hole in the air as a 2-story block of flats. Looks to the inside. This is a 77, but just a little bit too far back.
Oh, we've had a change for the lead.
We've had a change for the lead. The 420. Well, there you go. Look at the Aston Martin speed. You just can't do anything about the speed in the straight line. I did think that that was going to be a problem. Grim looks back to the inside, a ditch attempt, but that is the problem with the Porsche. Is that any kind of straight, you do end up a bit of a sitting target. Although the lap time is technically brilliant, but now that they're going to get dictated their pace in the corners by the 420 ahead, I think it's going to be a struggle. Yeah,
I think Grim might come under pressure here from Temtem in the early, especially with that top speed of the early. It's gonna play into the favour of them here. As we watch Bracken on with Bracken choosing down Charter's keeping it on the road, but just about. Bit of a slidey boy at the rear of that early. Oh, Bracken goes deep on the brakes, has to take a evasive manoeuvre there. Charter gets a little bit of a run on him.
So the Audi's trying to pull away out of the outer chicane. You saw the avoidance. At least it was a it was a good call from that driver. You kind of do sometimes have to just pick when you have to sort of bail out, as Zar is trying to get around Sefi. This is the other Race Ventura car, the 222 to the 115. And they're actually doing quite well. 17th position. They've just kept it on the road, kept it clean, where other people have had issues, have fallen off, and they're now trying to make their way back through. But the 222 knows that they just have to do nothing rash, because people have fallen off the road once, they'll likely do it again.
Yeah, well, I think that's kind of been their whole mantra this whole championship, is just stay out of trouble. And they're quite far. They're just in the fringes of the top 10, I think, on points. So yeah, just paying off for them.
Which proves that a lot of times consistency in racing is kind of what you want. There's a bit of contact between the 759 and the 24th Charter. Trying to go too wide. The Audi with a slow run. The Jaguar basically sideways coming out of sector 1, trying to get that power down. I think they would touch the anti-cut curb there, and it kind of unsettled the Jag. I'm still trying to fight.
Yeah, I'm guessing Charter must have had an accident then, or some sort of incident, because that's put them down to 8th instead of 5th fighting for Bracken. So Bracken's now on his own chasing down Alec with Paula behind him.
Well, it'll be good news for the 14 Bentley, as now doesn't have to deal with the Audi behind and keep the eyes firmly focused on the Audi in front. But and for Bracken as well, we've seen Bracken can do quite well in open air if you just leave the 77 alone and just let that McLaren run along. It will actually put in some quite good laps. So I think Paula's going to be hoping that the 77 can somehow slow down, but I think they'll get in, and they'll slowly start to do as we flick back to the battle with Sefi. The 222 and the number 10, maybe a little bit of contact. They're being hounded by the Hondas this way, that way, and Skylar takes the moment to take a move on Zar.
Yep, I think Zar put himself in a bad position there, just trying to hold the outside line, give Skylar the run on the inside up to the chicane. And although they come steep on the brakes,
and late on the brakes,
they get it stopped.
They actually do. They made the corner just about, but then they've gone wide. Zar's going to look back up the inside, but that corner tightens up on itself. It's very, very hard to do that sort of move. Kamia's is battling the big Bentley, a car that's good in the straight line. The McLaren's late on the brakes. Bit of contact there. Do they make the corner just about this way, that way? And the 97 continues through sector 1.
Yeah, surprising there. The McLaren had a bit of a run on the Bentley. I don't really know what of the two cars has better brakes. The McLaren just, to me, it doesn't seem like it has great brakes, and then the Bentley's kind of the same. They're both kind of wayward on the braking side of things.
The Bentley's brakes are strange because there's a very specific way you have to trail brake it to get it to grip and turn in. I can't even really explain it. If you completely stamp the brakes, it doesn't work. The ABS just makes your braking zones miles long, but there is a method to the madness. I can't really explain how to control it. And what's happened to the 113 Ferrari coming out of the Feeling of chicane. We didn't quite catch that, but they've definitely had something go wrong with them.
Yep, looks like maybe a little bit of curb or something's just slowed them down or something like that. But yeah, we've got. Go ahead.
We have another. The fastest lap of the race
we do.
now has been shifted to the Bentley, the 14. So the Bentley is actually, and that also would tie in with the fact that they've started to catch this group. The Bentley is starting to come in. I did think that this driver would slowly improve over the course of the race. You know, people who are new into ACC, the biggest challenge with this sim is seat time and just learning what all the input and the feelings that you're feeling as a driver mean, and you know what that means for the car. So they're actually starting to slowly reel in on this battle. Temtem still hasn't quite got around Grim yet. Grim is just managing to, where it matters in the Porsche, is just excelling in it, which puts them every single time just out of that striking range for the 79. But the gap is closing slowly and slowly. Shurex has managed to pull a 2.9 second lead. That Aston Martin is completely gone.
Oh, this is probably going to be a spicy yellow flag.
What's happened with the two Hondas?
Oh, Cerulean down the inside.
Trying to block the 660.
Oh, that was never going to work from Skylar.
3 into 1 does not go, lads.
I think a bit ambitious on Skylar's side, trying to send up the inside of the first chicane there.
Bit of contact, a bit more work for the stewards. The live stewarding here is it's picked up by contacts and yellow flags, and it relays it all back to the stewards, who will then look at it and make an informed decision as the 14 in the background completely sideways out of the last corner as well. That is a Bentley moment if I ever saw one. Plant your foot hard down, the turbos will kick it out, and the 115.
Look at the speed!
Look at the speed of the Audi! Ooh.
Elbows out from Grim, and they get it done. Temtem gets it done.
The 79 takes the position anyway. He says, "You're not having it." And now the 79. With that speed, even with this short run, I think they'll be outside of striking range, because you can't really make a move. You can see the 115 trying to keep close on the brakes, but you're never going to be able to launch it up the inside. And now they're once again in the situation where their pace in the corners is dictated by the car in front. And as a Porsche driver, you just can't have that.
Yeah, you kind of need to maximise every traction zone and just hope for the best, I suppose, at this track in the Porsche. Grim goes a little bit wide there, trying to take down Temtem again. It's gonna be a hard ask, I think. Maybe into this chicane they can send one up the inside, but after that it's kind of Audi territory then, isn't it?
Yeah, well, also the running wide a little bit as well will be, now the Porsche will be in the dirty air, which is it's definitely a car that does not enjoy the dirty air, does the Porsche. If you're this close to somebody, your whole aero balance and the wash up the car just plays hell with everything. Sometimes we've seen people, in fact we've even seen it in this race, you can send it into the penultimate, but then you're right back past with the Audi. What has happened to Camilla's, the 97 coming into Aqua Minerale? I wonder if this is a clip of the inside and the car just follows it round.
Ooh.
Too much weight transfer.
Yeah, just a little bit kind of, I don't know what the word is, tentative on the brakes on the way in. You need to be certain of what you're doing in that corner. You're either on the brakes or you're not, or you're accelerating. You're not kind of on or half on. Yeah,
well, you need to transfer the weight either like full-heartedly onto the front, or be just coasting so that the car is still very neutral. I find if you sort of half on half off, it will always want to try and rotate you.
Yeah, that's what I found as well.
The 555, after their little incident earlier on, is trying to catch up to another one of the Porsches, ZZ Softail. Should be should be fairly good for the Bentley, and at least these couple of sectors can kind of take the curbs and maybe catch back up to the Porsche. You've always got to think where you're going to make the maneuver. And for a Bentley driver, I still think that it has to be, especially on a Porsche, it just has to be that that first straight, because if you can keep with them, that is it's really gonna pay off for you. And the 222 of Sefi is already into the pits for the Race Ventura car.
Yeah, 2 laps down, so it looks like possible retirement there.
Possibly so. Now just gone 3 laps down. We'll keep his eye on the 222, seeing what's going on with him. But as he says, potential retirement from that car.
Yep, Snowdog battling ZZ here. Currently, well, I was going to say the closest battle on track, but it's actually not, because Jasper has caught Cerulean, even with all that front damage, has caught Cerulean, and is looking to make the pass. That is not a pretty looking car, is it? So someone's given it a bit of a face job.
Poor Ferrari's carrying around a little bit of damage. It does appear that the Ferraris have also carried a lot of damage around the season. It just seems to not be an easy car to get along with, which it's strange with the Ferrari as well, because this car used to be really, really popular and really common in a lot of leagues, and it's kind of fallen out of favour now. A lot of people have kind of gravitated towards the McLaren sort of meta, as it were.
Yeah, it's kind of dropped off in popularity. It was, I think, maybe 3 seasons ago, it was probably one of the preferred cars, and now it's just kind of...
It was incredibly fast over most seasons, really. There were only a few tracks where you took it to and it really fell on its face, but, wherever else you took it, it seemed to be amazing. I'm talking about the Paul Ricard 280-odd km/h time.
Jasper does get the move done, and they both go wide.
And they both go wide at turn 1.
Nice little bit of... And Skylark's going to clean up 2 places at once. Jasper doesn't quite get it back on the track without a bit of an incident there. So
I think Jasper saw Czar coming up with a relative and decided to stay off the track. So really, and maybe with the better with the better view of Jasper coming up, decided that it was a time that they could rejoin. But Jasper erred on the side of caution in that in the Ferrari. And Grim is still sort of chasing down the Audi, but you can see what happens here. They can get as close as they want all the way through sectors 1 and 3, and then there's a straight. And now you just can't. You're just outside of striking range, really. And also the 14 Atticus had a problem because they've been passed by Bracken for P4, so Bracken is now up to P4. Zar's trying to go too wide with the 83. The 83 takes a lot of curb, launches the car this way, that way, manages to keep it on the track though.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, as impressive as that Bentley is, I don't think it can take quite that much curb, but they seem to have pulled it off.
I mean, if you're still pointing the right direction, then, the move was still valid if you were pointing the right direction and you've made time out of it. And for the 83, they didn't manage to do that, so... congratulations to them. They've learned how to control a Bentley while also being completely sideways.
So just looking there, Attic's last lap was a 1:45, so about 2 seconds slower than the rest of the pack. So yeah, seems to be some sort of issue on their end. No one else has a time loss really at that kind of magnitude.
No, so something's happened to the 14, but I'm guessing it must have been self-inflicted. But they will manage to. I think they're about a second behind. Bracken. We'll keep monitoring that gap because we'll have to tell if they've got damage if they keep dropping it off. Speaking of dropping it off, the 660, was this just a late on the brakes, or was it
too much curb?
Oh, it's an anti-cut curb. It's an anti-cut curb issue. Launches the Honda, and it will just quite happily keep rotating under. So there goes Jasper again, gets the position sort of back. But for the 660, they've got to do it all over again.
Yeah. Although it seems that Czar has now got pass kit, so up at Piratella there, so must have had a good run up the hill.
Oh, that 83 looks very slidey.
It's very, it's definitely very slidey at the rear there.
I mean, I think we will see the 83 pit very early. At least I would expect it, because all the sliding will not be helping the tyres. At some point as well, we didn't catch it, but the track has finally gone to optimum. So it will now start to be less vicious to the tyres. But that's only after you've started the race and already grained them.
Yep, so we see Snowdog maybe breaking himself into the first chicane there. ZZ getting back past again.
And that does seem to be a problem with this race as well, is that turn 1, where to brake or too much curb. It is a difficult course to sort of nail down your turn 1 braking, because as well, if you end up slipstreaming someone the entire way.
1, 2, 3.
Then, yeah, and yep, he's in and seen the board. People have actually practiced their pit stops, which is.
Siffy is back out on track now, through 4 laps down. So maybe just a big SU somewhere.
Yeah, so the 222 continues on. Good to see them back out. Potentially just either a problem or had to jump away for a moment. And the 14, I did think that they would pick back up the pace. They have caught back up to the back of Bracken. It was about 0.9 of a second. It's now all the way down to 0.4. But have you noticed as well, Bracken's catching up to Temtem?
I was just going to say, Temtem has lost a lot of time to Grim there. So maybe, yeah, 46 last time, so that's a 3-second deficit. They've lost to Grim, so obviously maybe they already bit them a little bit in one of the chicanes or something.
Yeah, so a bit of a mistake from both drivers has put the 14 and the and the 78 sort of back close to one another. Just now they've got Bracken right in the middle. I think the 14 takes a lot of anti-cut curb, manages to sort of keep it back on the road, but that will be another time loss. You can see Bracken just running up the way, and that's the problem with the Bentley. You've got to pick and choose the curbs you can and cannot run over.
So do you think with the fast track at the start, is it now time to get pit early to get some tires, or would you run it as long as possible?
It depends where I am on the track, as the 115 has managed to get themselves a drive through.
Oh no.
We haven't had a...
That's the track limits.
Yeah, we haven't had a penalty report for that, so we can only assume that has been track limit.
Probably probably for corners like that.
Yeah, so that is not going to help the 115's sort of run here at Imola. Temtem and the others that are directly here, they'll be looking at that thinking, well, free position. So for them, yeah. But for me, it depends where I am. If I'm Surex, I run as long as I can. If I was someone like Attic, who, it appears that car has got the pace, the driver has the pace, but the car is maybe not quite responding how they want it to, I would be pitting, sort of a little bit earlier. You know that you're not going to come out into tons and tons of traffic, but I think it would be beneficial as the 555 leaves the pits as well. Some of the early pitters making sure that they don't rejoin into the moving traffic. Yep,
Bracken definitely hustling Tim here. If I was Bracken, I would probably be in. Get out of that traffic, get out of that air, try and jump Tim at the pit stop, because it's probably not going to happen on track unless they make a mistake, which it looks like. Oh, maybe they did make a little mistake there. And around the outside goes Bracken. Is he going to have the power up the hill?
The 77 going the long way around the outside of the bottom hairpin, but then look at the Audi. It's going to power up the hill. It's going to have the inside line at the top of the hill. It's going to be a long, brave old way all the way around the outside. Unless the 77 is going to try to go for the cutback. No, they're not. They're going to still try to go all the way around the outside, and they're going to have to fall back in line. But all that is doing is bringing the 14 back into contention. There's been a big shunt from the 77, misjudged the braking into Aqua Minerale and has spun off Temtem. 77 waiting for the afflicted Audi to rejoin, but for the 14, they watched that. They had the best seat to call and say, yep, I'm going to take that position, and the 79 is still not moving.
Yeah, unfortunately, it looks like they've called it a day. Oh, as Bracken gets passed by that circle, so Bracken now down to 6th. He'll probably get a hefty penalty for that. But that now moves Paula into the podium place of 3rd position.
Well, I think Bracken was obviously waiting for the Audi to rejoin, to recover and get past, but that never happened. So it's just kind of, lost themselves a load of positions, and will still get a pretty hefty penalty for that. So that's going to put the brakes on the 77's day. For the 14, though, they've basically just had the best race that they can, by doing nothing, by just staying on the road, because they've had the 115 had the drive through, and he's just watched the 77 that looked like they were on a charge take out the Audi, who was a car that they potentially were just outside of their reach of getting pace wise. So there you go, for them, brilliant day, and they've now got a 3-second gap to Paula, who I think they were pulling away from, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, looks like we have a nice gap between Paula and Charter. So, yeah, this is actually the closest battle on track at the moment, just under 1 second. Pit stops shuffling things about a bit, so maybe in a couple of minutes we'll start seeing more cars come closer together.
Yeah, pit stop shuffling things out. Grim has served the drive-through and rejoined the track. 9th position, about 14 second odd off Jamie, so that car will definitely be on the recovery drive, but it's not entirely over. They've got those cars, the top 3, I'd say, top 4, were still the fastest on the track, and there's pit stops to do. People can make mistakes in that, and the 115 still looked incredibly fast for that. So I think they would climb a few positions, and sometimes those few points, that might be the chance. That might be the difference in your championship come the end of it.
Yeah, well, they do have a drop round in their favour still, so this might not affect them that much. Shirex again hasn't taken their drop round, so yeah, not going to affect them too much this race, unless, of course, Zolder in the dark next week gets a little bit hairy.
Well, Zolder in the dark is in a Porsche where you have to have the first chicane of death. It's going to be interesting for the 115. They're going to have to try and maximize that, but then again, we've seen some drivers manage to make it work. I'm looking at Malinowski and Boothby, for example, the people in RCI who I remember commentating on them, thinking, how can you drive that car that fast? But I digress.
Yeah, as we have a yellow, and nope, Chuckle's going through the pit stop. I don't know why it's showing as a yellow. Not showing them in the pits. That's a strange one.
So the HRT car pulls in for their scheduled stop. I expect to see a lot of people maybe in at the 30-minute mark or just a few minutes after. A lot of people seem to opt to split the race in two. I am going to say that the 420 is going to go long as they don't have a lot of traffic in front of them, but I could be entirely wrong, so we'll have to wait and see. And that Sergel has managed to really catch back up to Charter. It seems that Audi has a lot of pace, but then just a few laps where it falls off and they end up back in the jaws of someone else.
Yep, maybe a little bit of dent in his confidence just after what happened earlier on in the race. But yeah, that Circle definitely putting that brute of a Mercedes to good use. As Bracken maybe closed up a little bit there in the last corner, so maybe go for a move here into turn 1.
It's possibly the 2020 Merc wasn't exactly the absolute sledgehammer for speed that it used to be. You can see that the McLaren can actually keep with this car more than, say, the Audi, and that Circle briefly had to think about defending it, decided at the last moment that they were going to take the regular racing line, that they were too far back for it. As the 115, your championship leader, pulls in for their regular scheduled pit stop just behind as well, the 759 Jaguar. They're still running in that around about 9th place. And that is the 660 off in the background. Skylar.
Looks like they were just maybe getting out of the way there, hopefully. Otherwise, that was a big off.
I think they were rejoining the track after an off, considering how far into the gravel trap that car was. But it is an area where mid-engine cars will have a bit of a bite at you, potentially. Yeah,
certainly. Not a whole lot happening at the moment. Just this little trio of cars holding steady. Good little battle. Shirex 14.5 seconds advantage to Attic in second place. Paula dropping away a little bit, 4.9, fringing of 5 seconds, and then this little battle behind them.
Yeah, and Shirex has retaken the fastest lap of the race, so the Aston Martin coming back alive now that they don't have really anyone to battle with. But maybe the tyres coming back around a little bit. I have seen it where if you very lightly grain them, they can come back to life after a prolonged stint of you being a little bit more gentle on them. It can kind of wear the graining off, and then you end up sort of getting the grip back as the 176 dives into the pits. So a lot of people now started opting to split the race in two, as well as the race leader, Shirex, the 420, in at the halfway mark. So that will promote the 14 Bentley up into the lead of the race. Charter still going round as well. Bracken has opted to continue on, as well as Jamie, who, as to the last moment, take evasive maneuver from the 660. Obviously was not expecting the 660 to be that slow into turn 1 and had to, at the very last second, dive off into the gravel.
Yep, looks like everyone's kind of diving in now. I've got Shurex, that's Circle, Paula and Zizi, and as well as Charles. That's the second time they've had to go through the pits, actually.
I did think that a lot of people would opt to split the race directly.
Just a perfect half and a half. Yeah.
It's weird. There's some people what they prefer to do. A lot of people that I know and race with prefer to go incredibly long, but it's at least for these drivers, it's what you feel comfortable with, and that seems to be the fastest is whatever you are comfortable with. Obviously the 420 deciding that they want that fresher rubber and just deal with the slight wear off towards the end. But anyone who's still going round, the 14, Charter, Bracken, Jamie, etc., they'll have the slightly fresher tyres towards the end. I don't think Shurex is going to be in any danger, though, considering the lead that they had. But it could make things interesting between the likes of, say, Charter and Bracken if he manages to get the pace of that 77 back up.
Yeah, some interesting ones is our provisional race leader into the pit static, so they're going to lose that to Shurex once they come around. Excuse me. We do have a yellow flag. What happened?
Oh, and it's Foxdale. It's Wolfin, the 41.
Oh!
I think that was the 115.
It was, yeah.
Going around the outside and clips the inside of the front right corner of Wolfin. Was that for position? I don't.
It was not. No.
No, so it was the 41 was a blue flagged car at that point, but
wait,
another point for the stewards to look at.
Did Bracken just let Snowdog past?
I'm not actually sure. I didn't catch it. Also, have you noticed how the 448? No, Bracken had an issue. I think they were rejoining. Have you noticed that the 448 as well has managed to be disqualified from the race?
Oh,
but they were last in the pits. So unless they've left their pit box with the pit limiter off, and that is what's disqualified them.
Well, I think that's maybe what happened the first time around, because that car went through the pit lane and it didn't show as being in the pits. It showed a yellow flag. So maybe the pit limiter wasn't on. I don't know if it shows a pit stop or the P beside your name if you have the pit limiter beside it, but yeah, that's an odd one, that is. That would need to be kind of ridiculous speeds through the pits, wouldn't it?
So we did have confirmation of that. Lap 16 for the 448 was disqualification for speeding in the pit lane, but that was a game issue penalty.
Yep, and back onto the pits. Snowdog's still trying to chase down ZZ. This has been a race-long battle, pretty much.
The Bentley trying to pull out as well. It does appear, though, that the Bentley of Snowdogs, it's not as great in a straight line, because I believe this driver runs the wing quite high, really likes the downforce for this car, which is what it works for them. But it means that you can see there, they got alongside the Porsche, but it wasn't enough to do anything, not on the outside line anywhere, whereas a lot of Bentley drivers take it where you just take all the wing off until you can't drive the car anymore, and then maybe add one more.
Yeah, it's kind of the way to do it. You just it's kind of if you put too much wing on, you're just throwing away lap time. Yeah,
the only time that I try and mitigate that with a Bentley is either running rake rather than wing, because it kind of it'll even out at speed, or I run really soft wheel rates, because for whatever reason in the Bentley it kind of likes softer suspension.
Yeah, well that's kind of the old saying, isn't it, that all your straight line speed is free lap time. Any time you can make on a straight is free. It's the twisty bits that cost you money.
Yeah, this is what I feared. The 14 having to look up the inside of Cerulean. There you go. They do manage to get by, and Bracken is well off in the distance. We just saw them in the background. So for the 14, they've got quite a safety margin, just a little bit sideways, and Cerulean basically copying the Bentley. But Paula Brady has managed to really catch back
Yeah,
up to
I was just going to say, Paula obviously really spending time in her pit stops lately, so maybe that's just caught Attic out. Maybe just not kind of versed in the ways of ACC's pit stop quirks, and maybe just lost a bit of time.
Well, I believe as well that Attic had the HRT car kind of blocking their pit box, and if you don't practice that, and you don't necessarily know. I've seen some people who come from iRacing, they try to drive around them because they expect to be contact in the pit, or people who can't see their box, and they need that line of sight. So I've seen that before, and I've seen that where people have lost a lot of time. And then you get the ACC drivers go over to iRacing and wonder why they've crashed into someone in the pit lane.
Why did I crash into him? Well, I think iRacing, it's an R Factor that has a full.
It might be R Factor. It was R Factor 2. It was when I commentated on the VL virtual Le Mans race.
I was going to say, because I've definitely driven through people in iRacing pit stops.
Yeah, I think it was VLMS where we noted like there were a couple of accidents even in pit lane of LMP1 cars bullying GTEs out of the way, basically.
Kind of one of the upsides and one of the downsides, isn't it? It's the realism of having to drive around a car, but then also you have other people to contend with. You don't have to worry about yourself. It's the other people you have to worry about.
And other people are always the main problem, you see.
Yeah.
The 555, they managed to get themselves right onto the bumper of the 18 Porsche. It might be a move down the straight. Charter is also trying to fight their way back through the field. I think that's JPEG Fox in the Porsche that they were going around. I believe a back marker. The 555. It's basically a carbon copy of last lap. They're on the outside, the 80 on the inside. They go for the switchback, trying to put the nose there, but the 18's still there. They just had to slow down far too much, and they couldn't get that, the run under. And now, once again, with that run, and with the better run out, the 18 can kind of just be outside of striking range.
Yep, Grim trying to chase down Hoot in the Jaguar and failing miserably in the straights because it just makes you look like you're standing still.
I mean, the last gen cars were all about speed, really, and the Jag is a very vicious one.
Oh,
well, as they're going through the chicane.
Oh, bit of a touch.
Bit of a touch on the rejoin. The Jaguar taking the anti-cut curbs very liberally, bouncing the car all over, and that sort of ends up slowing them down a lot. Grim's got to be very careful though, because you've got two corners now where they need to maximize it, and they've ended up back on the straight. You've got to hope that the Jaguar has
a little wiggle from the Jaguar,
but it doesn't. It might just be enough, actually.
I don't think it is. I don't think it is going to be enough. This is going to be.
Well, yeah. Look in the mirror. The Jaguar's coming, Grim. You have to defend it.
Oh!
Defensive. There's someone's coming out of the pit lane. The Jaguar has to dive back in.
That was smart.
Look to the outside, but yeah, moved out and realised there was someone coming out of the pit, so you have to just anchor on the brakes and go back.
Yep.
And now it's back into Porsche territory if Grim can just about hold it and start to try and pull away. But it's this kind of point where you're in the danger zone. Oh, there's the one more as the 759 spins off the track wildly.
Here we go, third time lucky. We're gonna have another one. It's easy, just blocking that inside. That's all he needs to do. Oh, into the curbs.
Nobody takes over the anti-cut curves. Now the 555 is looking around the outside of the 18. Just about keeps it on track. They both give each other space, but the 18 has still got the drive off the corners. The 555's just alongside, but you have a left-hander first. Puts the Porsche just in front, and then he can take the regular racing line for the right-hander. Porsche back in front again, and the 555's going to have to do all that work all over again.
Yep, a little bit deep into the hairpin there, so that gives ZZ a little bit of breathing room. Yep, you're going to have to come off the corner a little bit better, Snow Dog, to try and get that move done before turn one.
And that's the problem you get in it, is that it seems that Snow Dog could be as close as he wants, as he's trying to turn his Bentley into a member of the International Space Station. Houston, we almost had liftoff there.
You're getting a phone call from Elon Musk in a minute, this way well.
Yeah, But only the front wheels were airborne. We need to go for the full 4. a lot like we almost had it with the 83 earlier. They were almost all 4 off coming through the chicane between the 2 Bentleys. We have a good International Space Station mission going on here. Maybe we're onto something here, lads. But for the 555 continues on, scary moment, but just to keep it on the road. And Charter as well. They're slowly catching up to Paula. So I wonder if this car, because they did appear to drop a lot of pace, I wonder if they suffered with the graining of the tyres.
It's very possible. Just chipping away slowly. I think it was what, 2.5 a couple of laps back.
Yeah. It was well over 2 seconds a couple of laps ago. So that they have been just sort of clawing themselves back. I really think that car must have had something tyre related, because it was like a rocket at the start, and then they fell off the pace. And what has happened to Snowdog, the 555? I thought it might be another 2 wide moment, but I think it's just a late braking.
Nope. Just looks like he's lost the will to drive.
Or could it have been a mechanical issue? No,
okay,
it's still going.
Yeah.
I thought the way that car was still rolling, it looked like they might have had a mechanical issue that had sort of disabled the car briefly. And this gap is definitely getting smaller. I mean, the current timing board says 1.1. I think it's a little bit shorter than that. What we'll see is 0.5. So Charter is really on the attack now. That Audi of Paula is looking bigger and bigger in the windscreen.
Yep. A little bit messy with the curbs there for Charter, so we just need to keep it clean. Paula pulls out a nice gap there now. Cost him about half a second, unfortunately for him. But yeah, these two have been pretty much the same pace the whole season, and they've been having some great battles, as we see Snowdog off in the background there. I wonder if that was driver error. Oh, he's just parked it.
Well, we can't see that far back on our replay, at least for this time. I think that it's going to have been coming out of that chicane, planted the power, and has ended up, sliding off right, and that's kind of where you end up.
Yeah.
Sort of end up nose first into that wall. I've seen a couple of drivers do it before. It is the downside of the Bentleys. If you get quite power happy, no matter how much wing you run, the turbos will kick, and if it breaks traction, the Bentley's quite happy to just continue round rather than help you or save you in any way.
So we've just had a knock on the door, and one of the steward, Bolly, has given us 2 penalties. Car 115, which is Grim, our championship leader, gets a 5-second penalty for contact with the 41, which is Wolf and Foxdale. That was that pass we saw just after the first chicane. And then cars 18 and 555. Car 555 gets a 5-second penalty for that's Snowdog for hitting ZZ. Yeah, looks like it. And then we have a 5-second penalty for Bracken for Temtem, the hit on Temtem at Aquamilla Rally.
Yeah, so for the 77, that's a fairly light.
I was gonna say that's
fairly light, but I guess you can't. Obviously, this is why I'm not a paid steward.
Well,
but,
that could be it. Yeah.
It must have just been because because Temtem had already left the race. What more could the 77 do? They did slow up, and they waited for that car to reappear, but obviously they didn't. So it's one of those, what else could you do? And what's happened to Jamie in the 123? Is this another outbreaking? Possibly into turn 1. Ooh. There goes the rear end. Manages to catch it before the anti-cuts, but then ends up on the grass and the gravel, and just loses the rear end. A lot of people struggling with turn 1 braking this race.
Yep. Quick, someone play the Eurobeat. Deja vu.
The 759 now has got a couple of in fact, I was going to say new targets ahead, but oh no, it is, because that is the 123 of Jamie. So they have one target ahead. JPEG Fox moves out of the way in the number 12 Porsche, still managing to run around, and that's a driver as well. If I remember, they weren't 16th in qualifying. Oh, yeah, I couldn't think of my words there. But they've just been lapping around, keeping their nose clean. We haven't really had to talk
down
about
the inside.
them. As the Jaguar
Oh,
launches it over the curbs, the 759 looked for a move, but the door was always going to close. The 759 waiting for the 123 to reappear. Where are they? They've definitely got. There they are. You know, now back on the track is Jamie. Continuing on, another one for the stewards to have a look at, but that was a very late dive in by the Jaguar.
yep. Bit ambitious there, but good to see them trying these kind of moves. Getting a bit frustrated. I think that Jaguar probably had more than enough pace to get past the McLaren in the straight. Charter spins it. No, Charter spun it. He keeps out of the wall. That's goodbye P4.
That is what I think happened to Snowdog. Remember when we saw him over there?
Yeah.
I think that exact move, if almost happened to Snowdog, that's what happened. So now Bracken takes that back, but even if Charter doesn't get by them, they still have that 5-second penalty.
Yeah,
so they will lose the position. But I think Charter's got the pace to get by. They just need to keep it on the road.
Yeah, and also you have Grim chasing this pack, so if Grim can get past Bracken, then he'll take the position on track, because they both have 5-second penalties.
Yeah, and it's been a good recovery drive, considering that car, the 115, had an extra drive-through. And then back up into 7th after the pit stop, you know, with potentially 5th in front of them, because 6th does not have a penalty. But 5th potentially in front of them of Bracken. They've just got to get there, but they are slowly clawing away at that time. 13 minutes left. You've got a handful of laps left, but you know, not many. But if the 24th Charter starts fighting with the 77, that will pull Bracken with the penalty all the way down into Grim, and then it's the Porsche's turn. And if they, like you said, if they pass them on the track, then that is position held because of both the cancelling out.
Yeah. Just want to say as well, the Charter is one of our inaugural. I want to say endurance races. It probably wasn't our inaugural one actually. It was just a nice. It was a 6 or 3 hour. I can't remember how much it was. I think it was a 6-hour endurance race at Imola, and he won with last week's commentator John Dalton. So he does know this track well in the early. They both drove the early. So they catching up the Bracken here. He does have the speed in him to get past him. As Snowdog goes into the pits.
John also is. I didn't think John would want to drive the Audi. I thought he'd be more of a McLaren person. Then again, I've seen John in all sorts. I've also seen John in the V12 more than once. So, man, it's interesting. An interesting driver. I'll say that.
Yeah, I think you would probably say that too. So you would. But I think it was just after the 1.8 update, and he kind of liked how the Audi felt, so I think that's why he went that way, and ended up winning the race. As we have a yellow. Bit of a yellow there.
Leon having a big lunge, and that is the 14 in the background as well. What's happened here?
Oh, just getting out of the way.
Yeah, I think it was getting out of the way,
and then let Cerulean pass unknowingly or unbeknownst to them.
Yeah, being a little bit cautious has ended up costing them that position, as Cerulean saw that position and went, I'll quite happily take that if you're letting them by. The 14 as well, still in that P2 spot. I think they're still slowly pulling out to Paula as well, which is going to be a great day for them if they can keep it up. The 24th Charter looks to the outside. Not going to happen. Might try just be putting the 77 off their line. They have a great run. You actually saw them back off a little bit, try and get that run. Are they side by side? It looks to the nose in the 24. Once again, trying to put the 77 offline. They've run a little bit wide coming into the hairpin. It'll be the long old wave for the Audi all the way around. Or are they going to try to do a cutback as we cut to the next camera angle? They tried the cutback, but it wasn't to be. The 77 manages to sort of scuttle away and use the handling that you can get out of the McLaren to keep the corner speed up so that they're outside of that striking range. But it does show the intent from the 24.
Yeah, definitely one of the McLaren strengths is being able to just kind of hang around the outside of some corners. If there's enough speed, the downforce will work and it'll just pull you around.
Yeah, where you can't really do that in the Audi. You can try, but you're risking it because that car's sort of unstable nature. If you start to unbalance it,
Although look at
it will
Grim
have a
here.
bit of a fight.
Grim has
Grim
caught
has
this pack by, I think, about 2 seconds in the last 2 corners. By the looks of it.
Grim is now on a mission, and probably as well has basically after the drive-through has got
Probably
three set track limits. So why not use them? They give me them. As long as you don't get another drive-through,
Well,
you may as well.
They are there to use as long as you don't use too many of them.
Exactly. So there you go. I think the 115 is on quite a charge. I think it's only going to be maybe a couple more laps, and we're going to see. It might even be the end of this lap. We might see something because the Porsche falls away a little bit, coming into sector 1 just because of the nature of the straight. But then it seems that through every other sector, that Porsche is flying.
Yeah. So it looks like you were right, Hemi, about Snowdog having a hardware failure or a hardware issue of some sort. It looks like their pedals came loose off their rig. So that's going to be that'll definitely upset some of your rhythm.
Yeah, well, it did look like the way that car just sort of rolled along it. It just screamed mechanical failure, which is a really sad thing to see. The 555 was looking really good, and it looked like they had some pace. It's just mechanical failure and obviously the slight. But then again, you could say the mistakes were put down to the mechanical failure. So
Well, yeah. Open up the book of F1 driver excuses, and I'm sure that'll be in there somewhere.
Well, hopefully the 555 can remount their pedals and be back for the finale. Ooh, it's Charter, the 24 looking up. The Grim's going to get boxed in. The 83 is going to turn across just before Grim, who will lose a little bit of time to the Charter in front. It's put them basically where they were 1 lap ago, I think. So the gap is going to around about stabilize. Charter will be thinking, having a sigh of relief that happened. Just sneaked by the 83 and gave themselves that little bit more breathing room to maybe concentrate on Bracken ahead as well. You've also got Mercedes of that circle that they're now in shot. If you look, not that far up the road. I think they've once again been slowly reeled in. If they're going to be caught by the end of the race, I don't know, especially if Bracken and the others start fighting. But it's been another good race as well for the 176. Another driver we haven't talked much about, but P4 by, once again, keeping your nose clean is nothing, that's quite a good result.
Yeah, I think they had a bit of a nightmare last time out, and Paul Ricard got disconnected from the server as it ticked over to the race, so they couldn't join and do their race. That would be their drop round. But yeah, it's a solid showing here, just keeping their nose clean. But I think this is going to turn into a pretty spicy race in a few minutes.
Yeah, well, you've got to kind of make the most of your car where it is. And speaking of running a little bit wide at the top of the hill, might be a track limits. You just don't know with the time of the Delta. It could be a no time gained, or it could be another slap on the wrist. You don't want to do that too many times. And here comes the 777.
Half a second Bracken took out in Aqua Minerale.
Yeah, well, there you go. That is where the McLaren is. You can just use that downforce. The Mercedes is still just a barge. It doesn't really like going through Aqua Minerale, at least with the speed that the McLaren can.
Yep, Grim a lot closer to Char than Bracken is the circle. So this is going to get exciting. Let's see if Grim makes any moves.
Well, Grim's going to have to basically try attach a tow rope to the back of that Audi while they're close enough, and hope that down the straights they can be pulled along by the Audi. Because welcome to the long straight at Imola. No matter what you do with the slipstream, the Audi is gone, especially the last generation. Maybe if it was the new generation, you could, with the more aero and it's kind of a little bit slower, you might be able to hang on to it, but it's just gone. The gap has opened up again. Bracken's still trying his best to sort of keep up. And there's that circle in the gravel. It is. The 176 has had an off. Oh, it's once again, it's just a late break into turn 1.
Well, that's kind of solved Bracken's problem.
Ooh, manages to get it back on the track. But yeah, so that is. all but put that. But then Bracken has made a mistake. Charter, the 24's looking up the inside. The Audi powers around. It's going to be on the outside at the top of the hill. Goes for the switchback maneuver. Here comes Grim Lilith. Here comes Grim Lilith in the 115. Sees the gap, says, thank you very much. I will take that position. It's going to be on the outside. There is a bit of contact still on the outside of Aqua Minerale. Manages to keep it on the, well, I was going to say keep it mostly on the track. keeps it at least pointed in the right direction. But it's caught back. Bracken is not having that. Looks to the inside of Grim, but they managed to swoop around. And
keep it on track, Bracken.
A bit of a wobble. Charter's now looking up the inside. The Audi will use the speed and say thank you very much. A terrible sector for Bob Bracken, who's basically lost 2 positions. But Grim, the opportunistic person, saw that brief moment where those two were fighting and said, yep, I'm going to have that. I'm going to run away now. If they could pull out, they need to pull out 5 seconds to Charter if they're going to keep that position. But the 77 doesn't look like they're through yet.
No, definitely not. Charter, I think Charter maybe have the pace to keep Bracken behind him here. Oh no, maybe not. Oh no.
The 24 into turn 1 has been spun by the 77. 24 gets back going again. There will be a Porsche on their way. So the 77 is also going to let them back through. Well, that will Grim will be once again rubbing their hands together with that, because there's your 5 seconds. They've just now got to keep they've actually got to, if they want to keep P4, they've got to keep Dat Sergel at an arm's length, who is, there they are in the background. They had that off earlier. So that car's got the pace, but and the 14, what's happened to the P2? So it's come around the top of the hairpin.
He loses position to Paula. Paula's now P2.
It's touching the grass. Touches the grass on the coming into Aqua Minerale, and that just upsets the Bentley. So for Paula, the 148, who hasn't necessarily had to do anything hard this race, has just inherited P2 by keeping the nose clean.
Yeah,
that's just being this entire race. Don't outbrake yourself into turn 1. Don't have an off track, and don't have Aqua Minerale bite you or get a drive through. That's it. That's all they've had to do. 14's got 2 laps, I'd say, with where Shurex is right now. They've got 2 laps if they want that P2 back to catch the Paula. But look at that gap. It is quite a big one, and Paula really hasn't made many mistakes this race at all.
No, apart from the red flag issue we had at the first race, which I think they were involved in.
Yeah, they were slap bang in the middle of it, so they'll be very glad for that restart. But the 148 ended up slap bang in the middle like a pinball. Just that Audi was ruined at the race 1 restart, but has managed to get the car back on the grid, and what a conversion for them all the way up into that P2 spot by just keeping it on the track. And Shurex as well thought that maybe they might have to battle Grim with that with the launch that they got, and it just wasn't to be. He manages to get around and pull out. We haven't seen them all race, and sometimes you just don't need to talk about them because nothing has happened.
Well, that's it.
Nothing crazy. No crashes. No off tracks. No drive-throughs. No nothing. And it's 28 seconds to the gap to Paula, at least under the last timing marker. That is a yawning chasm. So the 420 will definitely know who's got the pace at certain tracks.
Yeah, and cutting into a little bit of Paula's gap there by about 0.4 of a second. But I think it's just too late. A day late and a dollar short, so to say. I think one more lap. I don't think they're going to close that gap down and make the pass. Catching's one thing, passing's quite another, as Murray Walker used to say.
Yeah, exactly. Especially now that Shurex is well on the way through the Villeneuve chicane. So that's where the leader is. So it'll be the last lap, and it's been a crazy race, really. Not necessarily lead changes, but second, third, fourth, and fifth have all been highly contested. Grim, if you look, it's 4.4 seconds that they've got to Dat Sergel. For the last lap, they need the perfect lap. They need to be 5 seconds out from that Mercedes if they can keep P4, and if they can keep P4, what a recovery drive for the 115. Really, it shows that they did have the pace. It was just that drive through. I think they still would have really been up there with the 420 had that not happened, and the now the lower sort of positions of the race still being heavily contested. You've got the 113 Ferrari up ahead being chased down by Wolfin. That was the car that we saw earlier, and the 660 Skyline's definitely had some problems. It's sort of trying to maybe get a 2-for-1 here, but for the 420, it has been almost a perfect race. Didn't really have to do anything. Had Grim fall off the road for them. They've just kept it on the road, kept it clean, kept everything correct, got the pit stops right, and there you go. The Lead Paw Racing team, the 420, will cross the line and take P1 by a commanding lead here at Imola. And for the 148, what a race that they've had. They haven't had to do necessarily anything, too crazy or outlandish. They just kept their nose clean. Right at the last moments where they potentially resigned to just having a P3 finish, the 14 falls off the road and they end up in that P2 spot. That will be a great points haul for them. The 14 crosses the line, another one where, new into ACC, they've had some ups and downs. They've sort of manages to catch
Grim
it
does pull Grim does pull the 5 seconds over that circle.
5.313 seconds behind, so they will be 3/10 apart basically after that penalty. So they do hold it on. Charter manages to hold that P6. Bracken holds the P7, I believe. Yeah, Bunny is too far back. It's such a shame. The 77 looked incredibly good. It just all came undone in basically one sector for them.
Yeah, unfortunate. It would have been nice not to get that penalty as well, I'm sure. But that's just how it goes sometimes.
So Bunny takes the P8. Kamia's the 97, another car that looked like it had a lot of pace, but has often been, off the road, and they have their own issues to contend with. Will finish P8. I think that was 9, but but someone has left already. The Jaguar with 759, despite the issues, that will be a top 10 finish for them, because I think ZZ is too far back. Then again, it's not that far. Let's see what it is when it comes to the line. Racing up, it will be 3.9. So I believe that when it sorts itself out, they might have dropped down a place.
Yeah, it seems like no one really. Although Bracken had two 5-second penalties now actually added to their time, so that was 10 seconds in total Bracken had. Obviously that hit on was it Charter? I can't remember who did he hit. I can't remember now.
I think it was Charter, yes.
So yeah, they had 10 seconds instead of the 5 that Grim had. So he wasn't really. I think that's probably the best case for Bracken now was P7. After that, but yeah, that was a really entertaining race. That was, I kept us well entertained for an hour and didn't even realise the Formula One's on. I think we've had more people watching us than they have watching the Formula One.
Well, that went incredibly exciting in the last sort of dying moments of the race. Everything calmed down right up until the pit stops started to shake things around. And as he says, for sure, Rex, it will be a great points haul. Exactly what they needed to really start to catch up to the 115. Which is, what we said, can anyone catch up to the 115 being so dominating this whole season? Well, we might finally see it. The 148 had a great race. Bearing in mind, the 148, they qualified 7th.
Yeah.
7th to 2nd by keeping your nose clean, nailing the pit stops. Didn't have to do anything crazy, no drive-throughs, no anything, and that will be, a great bucket of points for them. The 14, new to ACC, looked like they were improving in the car and qualifying, improving in the race. They had the pace for the P2. Just the tiniest little mistake into Aqua Minerale, which is so easily done. So, the 14 will take that with them, but for a first outing, that has been a good result for them as well. The 115, another drive-through, but even with the drive-through, even with the problems that befell that car, P4, from a recovery drive, you really can't complain with that. The 176 as well, they were 8th. They kind of followed Paula through the pack as well, and a P5, that'll be good for them. Charter, sort of charter as well. The 24 looked like they had some great pace. Just had those a couple of spins and issues. Same with the 77, they all came undone in one sector for them. Same with the 97, and I'm glad to see that the 759, the Jaguar, they did get a top 10 in a Jag, which is an achievement in itself. So that man needs they need a pat on the back and a handshake, because to bring a Jaguar out here to Imola is. It's definitely a car I would not be picking, but hey, maybe I'm not seeing the improvements of the Jaguar.
Sorry, give it a couple of years and it'll be cool.
Yeah, but it'll be the meta soon. Yeah. we shall flock away from our McLarens, and I'm calling it, lads. SRO 2025 will be the reign of the Jaguar.
Oh, you heard it here first.
Don't worry, I know some people at SRO. I'll go tell them. Lads, we need to make them qualify in the Jaguar. It's the test of the true driver. You need to drive the Jag. If you can drive the Jag fast, then you are the true driver, apparently. But yeah, what a race it is, and thank you for joining us tonight. I hope you will join in for what will be next week. Will be the finale, Zolder in the dark. That is going to really shake some things up. I think the finale, we're going to crown a champion there at least, and I think it's going to be another great battle, because from what we've seen today as well, people are starting to really finally settle into their cars, get used to it, and the racing is just getting closer and closer.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that one. It's going to be interesting to see what the strengths are of these cars and the weaknesses, and who can really overcome them. It's definitely going to be a difficult day for Grim, I think, in the Porsche at Zoller at least. But we thought that today as well, and they had one of their best races. Of course, the finishing position doesn't show that, but that was a stellar drive from Grim.
Yeah, exactly. So it you've got that to look forward to, the Def chicane and the continue that. So hope you will join us for then, and either join the Discord and like and subscribe so you don't miss that. We're a friendly bunch, and hey, if you want to race in it, we've got plenty of we've got the AM Championship. There might be another one around, but we have the Porsche Cup Championship coming up soon. If you like Porsche Cups, do you like going sideways and potentially backwards with no traction control? Then you can come join the Porsche Cup and go sideways with Fezz Fox, because I believe you're racing it.
I am racing that one. We're not having broadcasts for those kind of races. But yeah, the AM Championship will continue. It's going to be maybe a couple of weeks break. Maybe we'll get the Porsche Cup out of the way, and then we'll start the AM Championship back up again. Just do it as a kind of interim season between their main seasons. But we'll see how it goes. But yeah, join us next week for Zoller in the dark, and have a good one, and I'll see you next week.
Ta-ra for now.